Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Taking Liberties. It is the Spillerama, and just to cater for that, we've got the ABC News 24 feed coming in, I believe.
Yep, that's
Yep.
it.
Thank you, Lee, for setting that up. So Lee's here from WA,
I am.
Austin's there from Sydney, and Ziv is from Melbourne. So we're here going to be doing our little version of the panel show,
Yeah.
talking about basically the spill that is going on. We couldn't have picked a better time to record, personally. So the great thing is, when this comes out, you will be able to watch in real time, like a bunch of nerds, political nerds, watch what's happening, in the party room of the Liberal Party over in Canberra.
Yeah.
Um,
I hope all you people out there have got your blue ties and your Speed Dealer sunnies and you're ready for the show.
well,
gotta say
actually, I
it's-
have my Stand with Rand shirt, so
Yeah.
I-
You gotta say the Libs feel so exciting that they literally just on ABC News 24 like showed a guy like unlocking a door and then walking into another door. Like that's how on edge they are. Like any movement in that corridor.
I was
Yeah.
down in Parliament House for the last leadership spill. And yeah, it's ridiculous how intense everyone gets.
Yeah.
But it's just to be honest, it's an internal squabble, and the fact that we care so much. It would be really nice if we just go to bed and find out who was Prime Minister in the morning.
Yeah.
That's worry so much
Well,
about.
like unlike I guess for a lot of people that will be what happens unless us political tragics who actually somehow care about this thing. Hang on. I think we might be having we're about to have the announcement of the vote.
Oh,
So
exciting!
I might actually turn the volume up on the thing.
The Liberal Party room, one
I see.
ballot for leader, one ballot
I don't think
for
any of us can
deputy
hear it,
leader.
No. Well, you guys just
The
watch ABC
leadership
News 24 and
Was contested by Malcolm
Yeah.
Turnbull.
Well,
and
anyway, so
Tony
I
Abbott. Malcolm
suppose we
Turnbull was
should,
successful
while
on
the results
54,
are about
Tony
collating
Abbott
and all
44,
of that stuff going on,
and we had one informal of
we
99.
should probably talk
the
about the
position of
events
dep-
that led up to this.
yeah, it's Turnbull,
no,
by the way.
Turnbull?
Yep.
Oh my God, Turnbull! Oh,
55 to 44.
55 to 44.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
So, new Prime Minister, everyone.
Yeah, new Prime Minister. Oh, well, see you later, ABC News 24. You've done your bit. Actually, I guess you should wait to hear who your deputy is.
Yeah.
what
I
do
have
we-
I have a suspicion it'll still be Julie Bishop.
Yeah.
I don't see why it wouldn't be. No, the real question for me is hockey still treasure?
Well, I guess
was,
we won't know
'cause-
until... Yeah.
well,
Hockey
no,
stood for Abbott so strongly. There's no possibility of him remaining treasurer.
yeah, and let's face it,
Turnbull and
ultimately,
Bishop.
Yep. On it.
yes, yeah. Thanks to Mrs. Bridge there.
That's Tracy, my wife.
yeah.
What to say?
So anyway, let's actually get back onto what we were supposed to be talking about.
Yeah.
About the events that led up to this. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
last week, the Lee Sales interview, where she started talking about all of the stuff, all of the concepts. Sorry, all of the details about the economy. Unemployment is up, debt is up, government expenditure's up, taxation's up, everything is up.
Yep.
Everything that is bad is up, and everything
Yes.
that is good is not. Effectively, Tony Abbott's response was, "But we stopped the boats."
Yep.
And I think that was really symptomatic of the Abbott, well, particularly Abbott's vision of how his government was running. I don't think he really understood that stopping the boats only resonates with a really small percentage of the population.
Well,
Right,
I
really-
won't go far, but the reality is that stopping the boats is not a policy platform for an entire term in government.
No.
It's
No.
an aspect of a policy agenda. An aspect that is very popular, that I personally don't agree with, but it's there.
No, I actually no. I
And
think it's.
the larger
I think
problem is that he hasn't had a policy agenda that he's been able to articulate and go forward with. He's had an incoherent policy agenda. If you have a look at his press release on this spill motion, the first paragraph reads, "We are not the Labor Party." Well, who are you? You're
Yeah.
not the Labor. That's nice. Well, you're also not a bunch of trees. You're also not a forest. You're also not a lot of things. But who are you?
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
really cares because
Yeah,
they
you're right. You're right.
Abbott.
You're
not-
right.
And I've heard they're actually suing the Labour Party to remove the word party from their name to avoid voter confusion.
No, I actually have to agree with that. So, the Abbott government since 2013 has been since 2010. Actually, probably 2009. Since Abbott came in, he was pretty good at defining himself as not being Labour.
Yeah.
And I remember that being the running theme throughout his opposition career, and it was good. It was very effective. Differentiating yourself from the government is how you win.
Stop the boats. Stop the carbon tax. What was the other one?
Mining tax.
But he had basically
he
not
said
been the Labour Party. Stop the chaos of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
But that's a nice election slogan, but it's not a policy agenda for an entire term in government.
No,
And he also
it's
said,
something you can literally do in the first 30 days.
Exactly. And the thing is, he also said, no cuts to education or health, but we'll bring the budget back to surplus or balance or something down the line. We don't really know what we'll do with the budget, but vaguely cut spending.
Yeah, you're right. There was a lot of magic pudding stuff.
And this is really a product of that, really, that they've been unable to articulate their vision for government. And now Turnbull is saying, well, you can't go any worse with me. Although there's some who might say you could. All the people who were bully keen on national security, a lot of backbench MPs who were very keen on national security, saying we should be even more harsh. Turnbull's a danger to them. He's a relative civil libertarian on the national security issues. He was briefing against national security issues. He was pointedly pointing out how you could bypass data retention programs with the right apps. He's
and he's notionally been against the internet filter, which is something the backbenchers wanted.
Yeah, and the other and again he's pro green energy, which they're against somewhat. And the other one is he's less about stopping the boats than Abbott. So their three strongest policy messages are the ones that he's most opposed to. So he's a big danger to them in a way. But they're getting any ship in a storm will do, because Abbott's been a disaster. That's what
he has. But here's the thing. I think people are giving too much to Abbott on this one. So Abbott was the key salesman in this, right? And fine, he managed to get them across the line. But there's a lot of fault that falls on Hockey and a lot of other members of the cabinet, right? And I'm talking about Chris Pine unable to sell education reform when he had the public service on board, when he had basically every stakeholder on board for it except the unions, and he decided to pick a fight with them and lost the debate on that one. There's Joe Hockey, who hasn't been able to sell a budget since he got in. There's a raft of people you can point to.
Which, I mean, some of that's got to do, like, the fact that those guys are in there is probably because they were, like, closer to Abbott.
Teams, yeah.
Well, but also, like, like Abbott... I mean, really, if you think, okay, who's going to be the best person to sell a dry budget, as, an economically liberal budget? Well, if you had to pick anybody to be the spokesperson, you'd pick Malcolm Turnbull. But you can't pick Malcolm Turnbull because to make him treasurer is to make him too powerful as a rival. So I think in some ways...
Why does that matter? No, see, this did not matter under Howard. Howard's chief opponent, chief rival, was Costello, right? And he picked Costello because he was the best man for the job. This is the thing that died with Howard, right? And never got resurrected.
Sorry.
What? No. The thing is, the first three Howard ministries were primarily meritocracies. Now, in politics, you're not going to get a pure meritocracy, right? No. You're going to have to make backroom deals and all sorts of stuff like that. But
which, by the way, Howard did to become prime minister. So he did a deal with Costello. So that's how he neutralized his rival by basically doing a deal with him, and then he took over from Alexander Downer, who just completely fell apart. So I mean, that's a little bit different than Abbott won in a spill motion against Turnbull, and then has basically shut Turnbull out since.
Yeah, which was really stupid on his part, right? Because, yes, he made that deal, but if you actually take a look at the first two, I always go back to the first two Howard ministries, right? And there were there were some installments of political apparatchiks that was necessary, but by and large, the Liberals practiced a more meritorious approach to their to their cabinet. And that just hasn't happened in this one.
Yeah. I think Lee's pointed out, though, that there were different power dynamics at play there. Costello was neutralised as a rival. Abbott saw Turnbull as a threat. Bringing him in closer, yeah, maybe it could have worked. But the reality is, it would have pissed off his dear friends,
Yeah.
hockey.
And it would appear that Howard had a better read on Costello. That is, he knew he didn't have the heart to challenge. So, that's another factor at play, because essentially, even when it got to the latest date, the very final months of the Howard government, Costello still didn't have the heart to challenge him. And basically, Howard pretty much came out and said, well, if you're not going to challenge, I'm not going to give it up. So, that's I guess that's part of, and that's I guess a testament to Howard's ability to read his, the political landscape. So it is a bit different where, obviously Turnbull is not like that. He was, as well, as we found out earlier this year, he was willing to challenge. And certainly his ambition, well, now fulfilled, certainly wasn't lacking, where I guess maybe Costello's was.
Yeah. No, I wholly say accept the fact that the Abbott and not the Abbott and Costello. What am I talking about? The Howard and Costello partnership was tremendously different than the Abbott and Hockey one. But see, here's the thing, right? Like I have a lot of friends inside the Liberal Party. I used to be inside the Liberal Party, and I'm just noticing a lot of people relieved that Hockey is not going to be the treasurer anymore.
Yeah.
And I think from inside the party perspective, everybody's breathing a sigh of relief, because let's face it, Hockey was atrocious.
Yeah.
Like, he was a pretty terrible treasurer.
So it seems like, just on that topic, because I think all of us would probably agree that that's a key issue. That's where the Abbott government probably primarily fell apart. If in our perspective, collective perspectives, was they weren't able to get a budget that was serious across the board.
It's going to do better.
Say again, sorry?
Who's going to do better?
Well, that was going to be my question. So Scott Morrison seems to be the one that you hear talked about. I know some people who are involved in the welfare stuff who think that Scott Morrison is a colossal dickhead.
No, actually, that's why I think he's good in it, right?
Okay.
Because he is a colossal dickhead, and that is exactly what you need in a treasurer. You need you need a treasurer. Sorry, what?
He doesn't project as dry. He projects as a Tory, as a social conservative with
That doesn't matter.
welfare, but we'll sell anything if you can.
Well, and see, that's the thing. If Turnbull sets the agenda of let's actually do something liberal, and Scott Morrison, too, is at least with the, I guess refugee policy, something all of us would broadly agree with, but at least he actually managed to make it happen. He's the only person who actually achieved anything in the Abbott government. So theoretically, if anybody's going to do it.
I want to shy away from that, because I think Matthias Cormann has done a pretty good job in finance, and I think Julie Bishop has done a really good, solid job in foreign affairs, and Turnbull himself neutralised the NBN issue, because the Liberals were just losing that debate.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think foreign affairs is really easy to get right. Seriously, it's. Oh, sorry, Eve.
I am looking forward to Tony
I agree
Abbott
with this.
on his Minister for Women role, though.
Yeah.
I think he should get that back.
Yeah.
I agree with that. He's been pretty. That's the only role he hasn't fucked up.
Yeah.
There are women in Australia, and as far as I know, they still seem to be doing quite well.
Yeah. Well,
No, sorry. You guys were interrupting each other.
Zeev, yeah.
Yeah.
All I was saying is, because you're quite right, Turnbull has done a reasonable job of explaining that the NBN under Labor was too expensive. That's all. He hasn't won everyone over, but he's won some people over, and he's put some effort in. Anyway, Lee, over to you.
Oh, no, I can't even remember what I was going to say now. I guess, Scott Morrison, in a government full of people that probably shouldn't be ministers, like Peter Dutton and Joe Hockey and a bunch of others, Chris Pine, at least he managed to actually accomplish something in his portfolio. He managed to do something competently, and he got it through the Parliament, which is not an inconsiderable thing, considering how much the Liberals like to blame the hostility of the Senate for their issues. So, maybe as treasurer he'd be all right if he follows if. And I guess maybe this is the question we can move on to: is how seriously can we take Turnbull's claims to be an economic liberal? Because that was part of his press release, or part of his his statement when he went to the media, his press conference. He said, Abbott's failed in the economy, and I'll do a better job.
Not seriously.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I want to believe him, but I just, I honestly don't know how seriously you can take somebody who says that.
The reality is he's less than a year away from an election.
Yep.
What is he going to articulate in the next year? We're going to take a lot of spending cuts to the election? That sounds like
I doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's going into an election year. They've now been burdened with why they've had to sack Abbott essentially.
Yeah.
And they'll. To be honest, here's one thing Labor didn't do correctly. Right, when Labor sacked Kevin Rudd, they basically said the government lost its way, and that made no sense because they kept the same policy.
Mm.
I actually think. I think that the Liberals are different in this sense that they might actually change direction. Right? I don't know where that direction is going to be. It could actually be worse. But they're going to change direction, and it'll be largely reflected as to who he picks in cabinet. And we'll see, whether it's going to be a lot of that social conservative DLP style thing that gives way, or likely.
It's not likely to be. Not with Turnbull.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
So,
just had it to say. He's going to tone it back. But what is he going to do? He could implement a bunch of big government schemes, not DLP social conservative schemes, just like, talk about progressive values and what have you.
Yeah.
Or he could cut spending, and honestly, how likely is that in this current climate?
I actually think Australians aren't as opposed to spending cuts as the thing is, Australians aren't opposed to spending cuts. It's just, what are you cutting spending on? And there's a very strong, safety base. Sorry, they have to say very strong mentality about safety nets.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Liberal Party is very skittish about spending at the moment. They've had a budget disaster in which they tried to cut spending a little, and it flopped.
Well, that's because they only tried to cut spending a little, to be honest.
Yeah.
And no. It wasn't just that it was little. It was, who were they targeting? They were targeting. Yep. They were targeting young people. Basically they said, "Oh, it's the end of 25-year-olds on the dole or whatever." And I'm sitting there going if there are 25-year-olds on the dole, it's because of two things, right? One, they don't have the skills to get around your stupid minimum wage, right? And the second is because, they're probably in between jobs. And you're saying that they're not going to be able to get welfare. They're not paid high enough, right? And it's just they need something to tide them over. It doesn't make sense to put them on a 6-month. It's just the opposite of what you would do. What you should have realistically done in that situation is give them what they need, but put a cap on it, right? Be like, you will only get this for 2 years.
Yeah.
That would address the conservative concern of people being on intergenerational welfare, and it would also cut on the budget bottom line. They just picked the wrong ways to go about things.
They nickel-timed it. What they should have done is made large systemic proposed reform, and then when they inevitably had to bargain that down because of the Senate, they would have then been able to reduce it to a balanced half measure budget. Instead
at least a budget neutral position.
Down, spending all this political capital to then only negotiate down and still not have a budget surplus. It was terrible strategy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think we mentioned this last week as well. But I know, I was talking to my dad a few months ago. My parents are not liberals. They're kind of Labor types. They're not on board with the Labor Party, but they're kind of that. Well, essentially kind of the union sort of base that, the sort of working class kind of voters that the Labor Party would love to get, but have alienated. I remember him talking about after the first Abbott budget where, they introduced the co-payment and the medical thing. And, I remember my dad saying, he could understand the co-payment if it wasn't for giving $30 billion away, like money, 30 billion, like putting into a fund to then be given away for medical research. Like, I think there was just
It was an
not only did their plan not actually fix the budget, but even what they did have was completely nonsensical. So
Yeah, it was just.
Um,
It was like, hey, we're moving. It's just like, hey, here's this benefit that you're getting. By the way, we're going to tax that benefit slightly
yeah,
for this other thing that we want to start up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, even stuff like, what's the conversation recently been about, sort of, in terms of fixing the budget? It's the GST, which just doesn't even affect the federal budget, really. But, I mean, that's essentially like the level of conversation we've got. Like, essentially, the whole discussion about, tax reform and all this is about how can we raise the GST. It's just...
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like they haven't raised it before ever, and suddenly it's like we're thinking about raising the GST. What for?
Yeah.
What's the agenda?
So we're one of the countries that has... So a lot of countries raise GSTs. And I remember in 1998, the big thing was, I know Howard says it's only 10%, but if you look at Europe, right, it's now at 17.5%.
Yeah.
Right, it's only going to increase, and you know what? That was the scare campaign then. It was a very effective scare campaign, and quite frankly, it would, like, if I was looking at it now, I'd be like, yeah, those fuckers were right, because state governments are going to be greedy, right? They need money because they need to win elections. They need money because they don't have the option to, basically income tax. So they are going to go chasing after this magical pot of money. And if the feds collect it for them, it's no cost to them. So, yeah, it makes absolute sense that the states would want it. What I don't understand was why hockey was pushing for it. The feds get nothing out of it. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
No, they get something out of it.
What?
They get a policy agenda. They get something that they can talk about to make them seem like they're doing something.
Yeah.
And they get to hand off the responsibility. They get to pass the buck to the states to the extent that they can. And they get to talk about how it's not their fault. If only the states had more money.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
It's like the
Controversial idea. How about we let states have income taxes?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
providing all the services anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Technically, they can have income taxes, but realistically, you'd have to cut income tax in order for the states to have their own.
Yep. Sorry, Lee.
I had some sort of thought and then I lost it, so that's no good at all.
Fine.
But
So
I mean, who else should we see in the cabinet? Like, since we're just sort of talking about, what lies ahead for the Turnbull government. Who needs to go? Who should get promoted? Who needs to stay?
It's interesting to note that Scott Ryan and Mitch Fifield, both IP types, have walked in, and Arthur Sinodinos, known as a drive, all walked in with Malcolm Turnbull.
Yes, that is true. So did Wyatt Roy.
Yes, and who's not an IPA type, he's just there.
Yeah. So I actually think you'll see Arthur Sinodinos, Fifield, and Scott Ryan in there in some capacity.
Yep.
I don't know which portfolios yet. Hockey's definitely gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You'd say probably Kevin Andrews is probably gone as well. I mean, he's kind of the social conservative,
Kevin
hardcore
Andrews,
that.
Yeah. To be honest though, Kevin Andrews in defense is, it's like putting a donkey in charge of the farm.
Yeah.
Like he just has no interest in it. It's just I couldn't understand why he was being punished.
Right? Well, the good thing about Kevin Andrews though is he makes everything so dull. Like it just neutralizes any issue. Like because just no one wants to listen to him talk because he's just so hard to follow. Anyway,
yeah,
it's always funny.
Yeah, so Kevin Andrews is probably going to be gone. I hope Peter Dutton is gone.
Yeah,
life of me. Truly boring, man.
What I'd be interested to see is what's his name? Matthias Cormann actually moved to he would be an interesting treasurer.
Yeah.
Like I mean he's
very clued on financially.
Yeah. And he interviews well. You know, when you see him on the Late Line, and I mean that's a lot of in some ways what a lot of the treasurer does is he just field questions about the portfolio. Like, you know, that's part of it. And Joe Hockey just never really seemed that competent. Where Matthias Coleman, he's at least feisty. He knows how to sort of give and take.
He's not an economic girly man. That's what we're trying to say.
That's it.
By the way, apparently the bookies have updated their odds and the Libs are now clearly in favour.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Of winning the election.
Yes. And I also note a short statement from the Liberal candidate for Canning.
Andrew Hastings.
Saying, and what he's had to say is, when the dust settles on September 19, the issues will remain for the people of Canning: jobs, crime, ICE, and infrastructure. Gee.
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
you
So
can
he
really
put
see how much he's hammering tackling ICE, which is a state issue.
Yeah, I don't think
He has
I
no
don't think he
power to do
quite
it.
understands. Actually, that was the other thing we could have spoken about. Actually, let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
LDP pre-selections. There's 2 LDP people here. Explain yourselves.
Preferences, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
Actually, that's a good one. Yeah, we.
Labour. Well, gee, I don't know. I'm just a humble financial member, Vickers. I have no say in party policy anymore. But I can just say that they probably preferenced Labor because they figured, why not? Take a hammer to the Liberals. They're very unpopular nowadays. Smack them in the face. They're mucking
Austin?
things up and they're making our base unhappy.
Look, I'm coach, make bad jokes, and that's about it. I'm not here to comment on anything.
Fair enough. Yeah, no. That
It's
was
nuts about our name. That's the other thing.
yeah. That is true. I did notice that, and quite frankly, I think everybody saw my various Facebook rants about, you know, why the LDP is probably right for doing its preferences as it had. Although the more I hear it, like, I want to like Andrew Hastings because he's more, you know, is it Hastings or Hastings?
Hasty.
Hasty.
Yeah.
Hasty. Yeah. So I want to like him because he's potentially going to be a Canning MP, and I want to like him because he's more or less on the correct side of economics. Now, well, some of the statements that he's made. But at the same time, his social policies just make me go like, what is wrong with you?
Well, I mean, like, I actually know. I don't know him, but I know a lot of people who go to the same church that he does.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. Like, you know, he's a Christian, so there's a good chance he's going to be a social conservative. Like, and
Just because you're a social conservative doesn't mean you go into government to legislate that shit.
well,
I know plenty
yeah,
of social
yeah, pretty much you do. Like, I mean, that's how they
no.
operate. Like, as a former social conservative, I mean, like, I'd call myself a conservative libertarian because my pre-political instinct is conservative. Like, as a Christian, like, the sorts of things that social conservative likes are the things that I like. I just think I have a different approach to it. I think the right way to get those things is through the market and through voluntary. So anyway, I think unless you actually have a libertarian point of view, it's very hard to think of ways of dealing with social issues that don't involve legislation. So, I mean,
All right.
you
I'll
know,
buy
I mean,
that.
and that's the same with progressives. Like, if you're a progressive, the only way you can really, your framework for thinking about how do we solve an issue is, well, what can the government do to fix this?
Can I just object to this? Because I've often called myself a progressive because I like progress. And almost never does it come to my mind that government is the way to achieve that. Almost
Yes.
never do I think like.
But when I say
government is the way
progressive,
to
like, I'm not
do
talking about, like, because there's kind of two things you can talk about when you talk about progressive or conservative. You can talk about a pre-political instinct, that is, you know, before you sort of think about what does politics relate to this issue, this is my feelings on these issues. So,
Yep.
you know, like, as a Christian, like, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. You know, I think families are, you know, the nucleus, like, the, you know, parents, biological parents with kids, like, that's a good thing. You know, like, all this stuff. Like, I think they're all good things. And, you know,
I agree
for like, progressive libertarians, they'll have their own feelings about those things, you know. But then you kind of got the set of policy. So I wouldn't call myself a conservative politically, because conservative politics is about legislating morality. you know. And I think that's the same with progressives. Like once you go from the pre-political instinct to the actual policies, progressive policies, that's when you go, well, that's where you would separate from all
Yeah,
my socialist mates, you know.
So no, the thing is, right? Progressive there used to be something called the Progressive Party, and it was basically all about infrastructure, basically. Infrastructure, basically. So at its core, progressive parties around the world were all about infrastructure. Like, it was like about building the country, nation building, and all of that stuff. And somehow, which makes them susceptible to the left wing ideals. And basically, then it got captured by leftist ideologues who didn't want to call themselves socialists anymore because that was a dirty word.
Yeah.
I don't want to let them have the word progressive because it means something, and it means something that is good.
Mate,
Right.
words have the definition that people ascribe to them.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true.
Thing
And I
shiny once, but it's not what it means anymore.
I don't care because I am fighting to take it back because I don't want a bunch of filthy hippies to take a word that is good. And
So says every single person who's lost the use of the word or the definition they see like it, and futilely shake their fist at the cloud in the vain hope that one day the world will change.
I will shake my fist at the ground.
By the way, because I think it. Sorry to. Bolt has said. Bolt has noted Kevin Andrews stood in protest against Julie Bishop and got 30 votes. Those 30 votes will be people who are very angry. Bolt has also said Turnbull is stealing the job he could not have won, using policy weapons, stopping boats, etc. He could not have designed, and posting of a communication ability he does not have to head a party he cannot unite. He would not have stopped the boats or scrapped the carbon tax. I doubt he would have pushed for the free trade deal.
Can I just say that I'm seeing a lot of this via conservatives on Twitter, because I'm sort of browsing Twitter while we're talking, and I'm seeing a lot of conservatives saying that as well. And can I just say to every conservative who's listening, just accept the fact that Tony Abbott was shit. Like, you need to get to grips with the fact that he failed miserably to do his job, and unless you can actually get a hold of that, understand that, and accept it, you will never be able to move on. Like, they just need to learn to deal. Like, it's just so ridiculous saying all this stuff about.
On an unrelated note, I think it's really amusing that you guys are reading news feeds and looking at Twitter stuff, and I'm playing Adventure Capitalist and our respective priorities.
Well, we've actually had 30 minutes, so that basically on that devastating insight from Austin, we should probably wrap things up.
Oh, well, we probably should. Especially since we're all actually... Am I right in saying everybody's looking at their feeds right now?
Yeah, I'm like flicking between. But on election night, they do that as well. They're always looking at their phones now. So
Yeah. So
Their feeds of
it
what?
might be another topic on its own. But yeah, no. I think this will probably be the most haphazard episode ever. And hopefully it's recorded for posterity so that everybody can see how disorganized we were in talking about this. And how disorganized we are when something is happening on the fly like this. So with that, I'm going to end this episode. Unfortunately, I'm going to delay adding our intro music and outro music for this week, just because this bill happened and we didn't have time to get ready. So it'll be in next week. So there's something to look forward to.
Oh, is that Piper's music, by the way?
Yeah, that's Andrew Piper's music. So big shout out to Andrew Piper, who does listen to the show and was very upset that we still didn't have theme music, but it's coming.
He's been for that for a while.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Yeah.
It's music too, so why not?
It's good music, and I will give a story about what happened to the last piece of music.
Oh, by the way, the LDP could be apparently happier with Malcolm Turnbull. Certain things might change. Maybe the legal action will be withdrawn. I really doubt it, but maybe.
Thank you, Zeev, as the spokesman for the LDP.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what I've heard.
Sure. I guess on that good news, we will wave off.
I mean,
Bye.
John Humphries has said the same. All right, goodbye.
See ya.